All right, guys, welcome to episode 11 of the TLDR podcast. Quite a crazy week we had with sports. A lot of stuff going on socially with protests and all that. So we're going to kind of kick off the episode kind of starting with that. We want to kind of get into it and kind of give you guys our thoughts on everything that's been going on. Obviously, these social justice protests happened. We missed a few days of sports. This was after the police shooting of Jacob Blake. And obviously there's been a lot of other situations that happened before that and for a long time throughout our history. And I think sports, especially in this pandemic, has been taking kind of a forefront of kind of the movement and all that stuff going along with that. And I think it's really important for us to kind of talk about it and open it up. So I'm going to kind of go around and kind of discuss kind of each sport and each individual person on this podcast, kind of their own experiences and kind of whatever they want to talk about in terms of what they've learned through this whole process, the last few months, if they have any experience themselves dealing with any kind of racial injustice or anything like that. So James, I kind of want to start with you. You mentioned the WNBA and how they've been a forefront of this whole thing with me when we were hanging out on Saturday. And I thought that was a really good point that you made. And they had dedicated their 2020 season before to Black women abused or killed by police in this country with the Say Her Name campaign. Obviously, Breonna Taylor being the forefront of that. They, along with the NBA, postponed their games Wednesday and Thursday. They are a big part of this. I think been the forefront for a long time. They don't get a lot of attention because it's the WNBA, but I think that they are really doing a great job of kind of spreading their message and making sure that they get the best social justice as possible. So James, just kind of give your thoughts on that and any thoughts you have on, like I mentioned, kind of your experiences or anything that you've learned throughout this whole racial injustice movement.
Okay, so WNBA, like Tyler mentioned, not a lot of people watch it, and I think you really should. Like, these women are doing some fantastic things. They're being really proactive throughout the community. The season started July 25th, and so this is well after the Black Lives Matter movement and all this stuff came up. And so they literally dedicated their entire season to this. Like, there's the only way they would is if the entire season was dedicated to that. And they had multiple players who still opted out anyway. So they could do stuff outside of the bubble because they have to be in a bubble, obviously. But they had people who stayed out, like Natasha Cloud of the Washington Mystics and Renee Montgomery from the Atlanta Dream. They're sitting out so they can further racial justice efforts outside of the bubble. That's super honorable. They're not getting paid for this right now. They're just doing what they think is right. And one of the biggest storylines, and it's like happened probably this last week or so, but the Atlanta Dream, I don't know if you guys know this, but their co-owner is Senator Kelly Loeffler, and she is against Black Lives Matter. Like, she goes out and tells the media she doesn't agree with Black Lives Matter. And so what the players are doing now, especially from the Atlanta Dream and high-profile players in the NBA, they're wearing a shirt that says "Vote Warnock." And Dr. Raphael Warnock is who's running against Senator Kelly Loeffler right now. And it's crazy because these Atlanta Dream players, this is literally their job on the line, and their co-owner can literally cut their paycheck, but they don't care. It's the right thing. Ethics over money right now. And the WNBA is doing a really good job. In terms of personal experience, I'm the only person of color in this podcast. I'm Filipino. So I don't get the same like mistreatment as African Americans do, as the Black community does. But I still don't get the same treatment as you guys. Like, you and I could be walking down the street. I'm talking to everybody in this podcast, but we could be walking down the street. People don't say hi to me. People ignore me. They say hi to you guys. And I say that all the time. I go running with my coworker every single morning, and everybody says hi to her every single morning. Nobody says hi to me. They're afraid of me. People don't look at me, and it's okay. I grew up in Napa, California, a predominantly white area of California, the United States. And it's just something you deal with, man. Like, people make jokes all the time, and it is what it is. It's something you got to deal with, and it sucks, but that's life.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, James. I also want to talk about other sports that did a lot of good protests, Major League Baseball. They had games postponed on Wednesday and Friday on Wednesday and Thursday as well. a lot of this was more of a specific player kind of driven protest. There was a lot of kind of it was, I guess, in a weird word, like kind of chaotic in terms of the protest. It wasn't quite as united as I think you saw the WNBA and the NBA were. A lot of that was because they're not sharing a bubble like those teams are, so they're not able to kind of all meet and all agree on what to do. But you did see a lot of teams not playing and kind of supporting their Black teammates, or just the Black community as a whole. Also, Jackie Robinson Day was on Friday, so that was pretty crazy timing with all that. So that's just another time to reflect on all those kind of things. Alex, like Jackie Robinson Day kind of being moved to August this year, kind of what are your thoughts on, like, anytime Jackie Robinson Day comes around, and like I said, like your own personal experiences with all this?
Yeah, being a Dodgers fan, Jackie Robinson Day is always extra special for us, I feel like, because obviously Jackie played for the Dodgers. His family's still involved with the team. It's been crazy, yeah, to kind of go off of James too. Like, I got to give a shout out to Maya Moore. Like, she didn't play for a couple of years to like promote social justice, like before Black Lives Matter started, like this whole social injustice movement started. So, and like, I've been doing the NBA segments lately, and the NBA has done an amazing job. They got together, the Bucks kind of started it with their protest. I guess they weren't going to play, and then the other teams followed. And I think they've done a great job. And I think the NBA has done a great job of supporting the WNBA, because, to be completely honest, like, the women have done vocal, they've done a much better job. Just unfortunately, their platform is not as widespread as what the men get, and the men are supporting them, and I think that's awesome. On my side, obviously, I can't relate, being a white male, and I grew up in a very small, predominantly white town in California. But one of my best friends growing up is Black, and they were, looking back on it now, like, there were definitely instances where as a kid I didn't even think about it, but for him they were whole different reactions to interactions with police officers, or just interactions, like you were saying, James, just walking down the street, where we did get treated totally differently. And for being a white person, I think the best thing that we can do is just try to listen and to help and to relate as much as possible. We're never going to understand. It's never going to be something we completely understand. But if you're willing to put in the time and the effort and have those difficult conversations with your friends of color, that's really what you can do to start with. And vote. Get out there and vote. I think voting is extremely important. So it's been a crazy time, and I'm generally pretty proud of a good portion of this country for standing up for what they believe is right.
For sure. Thanks, Alex. Tradon, I want to talk to you a little about the NHL. Obviously, I think they got a little bit of criticism being a little bit late in postponing their games. They ended up postponing all their playoff games Thursday and Friday of last week. Kind of what's your opinion on that, kind of the quote unquote delayed response by the NHL, and again, like, your own personal experiences and all that?
Yeah, it was a little tough to see them not kind of follow suit, at least with the last two games of that Wednesday. I think I agree with Chara. He said that the Boston game had already kind of started. Like, they really didn't have a chance to flip the script. Although you could say that they probably should have been have more forethought if you're on that side. I'm not, it's tough to judge that. The Hockey Diversity Alliance is this subset. This is a group that's not underneath the NHL that kind of called for this action to kind of take place, and it's kind of run by players, including Evander Kane, among others. And it seems like they've called and they've signed a pledge, and they gave their plans and wishes to the entire NHL to hopefully build this alliance between this group of players and the NHL. I appreciated that they did finally not play those 2 days, Thursday and Friday, to kind of gather gather thoughts, start having a dialogue, and kind of have a plan in place. And what I think I appreciate most about all of the leagues, especially the NBA, is they didn't just stop the games. They actually have talked about and actually have made plans to make structural change. Because to me, you could cancel games all you want if you're not going to play. I mean, what does that do besides giving you time to gather your thoughts, gather your plans, and make it and give some sort of idea of what you're looking for? And they did that, and they're working on getting Dodger Stadium, I think, is being opened up for voting as a voting place. All these places are opening up their areas for voting so that everybody can vote, which is, like Alex said, is, in my opinion, is the most important thing that an American can do. I mean, that is your protest. That is your ultimate protest. That is your ultimate voice. And I appreciate that. I think that the NHL probably could have been a little bit quicker. I will say this. It was tough for me to see how much hate they got, considering the MLB still played 12 games and the NHL got shit on for. I mean, they only canceled 3 games. I mean, I'm not shitting on the NBA. I'm not, or on the MLB. I'm not trying to say they did anything wrong. I just think it's kind of unfair to completely discredit the NHL, but maybe because I'm biased. I'm not trying to cause a controversy, but I do appreciate that they did listen to the HDA and are working to better the racial issues that hockey kind of has in its DNA. Unfortunately, hockey is a very expensive sport, and it's not accessible to people of color that are on the lower end of the economic spectrum. And that's something that means something to think that hockey obviously is my favorite sport. It's the best sport in the world, and the more that people can get involved with it, that's something that I would personally love to donate my money to, and get people from all different walks of life, that people that weren't as privileged as me, to play the game. As for my personal experience, I'm a white guy from Montana. Colored people were not part of my life really early in my life until I basically moved to California 10 years ago. That said, obviously I've learned a lot in those last 10 years, and I've learned a lot in the last 6 months to a year. And I think I echo what Alex said. I think it's my job to continue to listen to my friends of color. My best friend is James. He's a person of color. My girlfriend is Chinese American, and I've learned a lot from those two, even just recently. And that's among my other friends that I have come into contact with. And I think it's just my job to listen, to understand, and also discussion and dialogue in my opinion, is the most important thing. And without true dialogue and without discourse, I think that you're just yelling on one side or the other, and that's more damaging than anything, in my opinion. That's polarizing. And so I've always been in this belief that you don't have to understand everything. You don't have to agree to everything, but you at least need to respect one another, especially respect your fellow American, and love your fellow American. That they're your countrymen at the end of the day. It doesn't matter the color of their skin. So that's my 2 cents, yeah. I guess.
Well said, Tradon. So Eric, kind of focusing on the NBA and WNBA, I think they're kind of the 2 leagues that have been the forefront of this whole situation. Obviously, it all started, like Alex mentioned earlier, with the Milwaukee Bucks not taking the court before their game with the Orlando Magic, and the Dunwells kind of fell from there. There was a lot of discussion, a lot of reports about them possibly canceling the rest of the postseason. I think being a sport with predominantly Black players, I think for them it's a really, really big deal, and it's pretty impressive for me that they're able to come back and play and put on a great show, as they have and will continue to do. But Eric, I know that you work with some of those guys, like kind of what's been your experience with them, or, like I said, like your own personal experience with all this?
Yeah, everything, experience and working with NBA players has been positive. Always been great learning experiences. And, going back to touching on basically everything you guys said, it's for me, Tyler, Alex, and Tradon, it's hard to put ourselves in the shoes of them, because we truly will not understand, being treated unequal, what that really is. Doc Rivers is really big he's just a great speaker in general. And he's touched on, the biggest way to get change is to go vote. And he, I believe, is getting everyone registered to vote in the bubble. All NBA players currently that are in the bubble, he's going to get them registered to vote. And yet, their boycotting was them taking a stand. They're sick of everything that's been going on. It hasn't changed. You go back to history and the Civil War and all that, and Abraham Lincoln and things from that point on, still isn't equality and fair treatment. So the NBA has been really good about portraying their stand and the Black Lives Matter voting. I got a shirt right here from the Clippers equipment staff, and a bunch of the NBA equipment staff been good about, making good gear that promotes, freedom riders and all these different speakers for the Black Lives Matter movement, you could say. This one's from John Lewis: get in trouble, good trouble, necessary trouble. I had that up for two reasons. One, because we're talking about this right now, and two, we'll get into it later. Because, we're going to talk sports later, so I'll get into that later on. But, kind of just going off of what all of you have said, I agree with everything that's been mentioned. And a big thing is, I'm never going to be treated the same way that they have been treated, but I hope that it changes in the future.
Right on, man. A couple other notes around the sports world that I wanted to mention. Naomi Osaka, women's tennis player, didn't play in her game. I believe it was on Wednesday. And credit to the tournament that instead of just canceling her match and having her forfeit, they postponed her match along with a couple others. And then the MLS soccer postponed 5 of their games on Wednesday as well. So you're seeing it all around the sports world. I think that's pretty amazing how you see that effect change so quickly through all the sports happening right now, not just with the NBA and the WNBA. And just to touch on my own personal experience, kind of similar to, Alex, Tradon, and Eric, growing up with a predominantly white community, not a whole lot of experience with people of color other than kind of just seeing them walk by. I think with this whole movement that's been going on, I've learned a ton. And I think for me, like the biggest change in my perspective is, I was kind of grown up to be and taught to not see color. And I think that even though that's well intended, I think that's the wrong way to look at things, because I think it ignores the problems. And I think I've learned a lot to, learn about the problems and really understand them more. And for me, I think that's just a big shift in perspective, and to not, ignore people of color, not ignore their color, not ignore what they're going through. And, because I think it's important for people of the white community to finally speak up and actually say things and actually support them in a, tangible way, I think is really important now. And I think you're seeing that more and more, which I think is a really good thing. So for me, I'm doing everything I can to not just, listen and support, but also try and, like I say, vote, donate if I can, speak up for those that are affected by this. Because obviously at the end of the day, we're all human beings on this earth. And that's all that really matters. Does anybody else have anything that they want to add or comment on?
Yeah, I've got one more thing. I was listening to Danny Green's podcast. He's a player for the Los Angeles Lakers. And, he was mentioning how NBA players, because they are, like we were talking about, it is a predominantly black sport, that they've been almost forced to become politicians as part of this. And Tradon, you mentioned it, but shout out to LeBron and getting Dodger Stadium set up as a voting polling area. And from what I've heard, they've been part of the deal when they took a couple days off to meet with the owners. Was they're also making all of the home stadiums, obviously they're in the bubble down there in Florida, but all of their home stadiums are going to be repurposed as polling stations as well. So Staples Center, Madison Square Garden, all the stadiums around the country, which I think is great. And, for the people out there that are saying, oh, if I took a day off of work, like I would get fired, you're still getting paid, all that bullshit. That's not the point. The point is it's time for the people like 4 out of 5 of us who have never experienced something like this to shut up and listen. And Amir Garrett, he's a pitcher for the Reds, said it best. Sports are a privilege. We all were sad when sports were gone because of coronavirus. And you know what? The NBA almost canceled their postseason because the social injustice that's going on in this country. And I would have 100% understood if they were like, no, we don't want to play. We are a lucky few that have been given the right and given the means, I guess is a better way to put it, to voice their opinion. And their opinion it will be broadcasted throughout this country because they, happen to be great at a game and they have the money and the popularity and the means to voice that opinion. So for those people that are, bitching about players not playing, normal people, you can't just not show up for work, but that's not what this is about. And I commend them. I think it's really impressive that these players have decided to take a stand and use their platform to, help better this country, because we've obviously got a long way to go. Go ahead, Tradon.
Just echoing what you kind of said, Alex. I actually commend them for not canceling the season, because I think Draymond Green said it best. That is their platform. That is the big. They created this bubble to be the biggest platform for this movement, and I think they definitely made a big statement by not playing those games. But if you cancel that whole season, your platform and your voice is gone, because you're not on every single game. You're not getting interviewed after every single game. This is your opportunity. Now you got to keep that. And I think that was very, very prudent and smart of them to wait, talk about it, and realize, okay, this is our platform, but we need change. We need structure. We need a plan. And they took those days, they figured it out, and now they can continue their platform in the best way possible, in my opinion. And I really commend them for that as well.
And you've noticed too, exactly what Tradon's saying, like post-game interviews with the NBA guys, like last night, Chris Paul, they asked him all these questions about the game, and every question he would defer away and get back to the social injustice matters. Like first, this is what's very important in our lives right now that needs to be focused on. Yeah, we're playing basketball, doing this, but like Tradon's saying, that's his chance and opportunity to express what he believes, what they believe, and get the statement and point across. He does get back into the basketball details, but it's he wants to clear up and make sure that everyone understands what they're playing for, what they're doing it for.
Sure. Anyone else?
Everybody register to vote. Let's make some change happen here, guys.
Well said, James. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to move on with the rest of this podcast. Thanks for listening to that conversation. I think it was really important for us to have it. And yeah, when we come back, Tradon is going to take us to the ice, and he's going to give us an update on these 2020 Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll be right back. All right, boys, welcome back. Tradon, we're going to be talking about the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's been a pretty crazy playoffs. I think a lot of series have not gone the way that we expected them to. I know my bracket's pretty fucked. So, Tradon, take us away.
Well, to start, my bracket was fucked after the first round because I'm an idiot. So there you go. I'm going to start with the that's moved on, and that's the Bolts beating the Bruins in 5 games. To Tyler, I told you, I asked you to walk through this. I'm just going to give you a couple of my points. I think that the Bolts were the better team of the whole series. I do think that Boston was the better team in Game 5, but the better team in each game doesn't necessarily win the game. But I think that the better team wins the series most of the time. That's why we have 7-game series. But overall, I think that Boston losing their star goalie was a problem. Even though Tampa was missing Stamkos, their depth is huge. And the last time a President's Cup trophy team won was Chicago in 2013. I thought it was earlier than that, but it wasn't. So that stretch, that curse still remains. So Tyler, I think that, well, I guess we won't go into that. What do you think of this series? Well, what do you think of that series? What do you think of the Bulls? How did everything kind of?
Yeah, I mean, it was rough. I mean, I obviously was pulling for the Bruins because they were my pick to win the Stanley Cup. I'm not really a Bruins fan, but obviously that was the team that I wanted to win. Yeah, I mean, this was a hard-fought series. I think a lot of these games were really close. I think the series being 4-1 kind of overshadows how close these games were. I mean, Tampa Bay won 2 overtime games, and those could have easily swung the other direction, and we could have, a 3-2 series in Boston's favor right now. But the fact is, it didn't happen. I think I talked last week about how it was kind of Tampa Bay's offense versus Tampa Bay's offense versus Boston's defense. Mm-hmm. And Tampa Bay's defense, I think, was the thing that won this series for them. They had the Boston Bruins had so many stretches where they were just pounding the net, and they stopped them. And I got to give credit to Andrei Vasilevsky. Tradon, you asked me who my MVP was going to be. For me, that's Vasilevsky. I think he was a stud this series. There's a lot of good players in the Lightning, but for me, in that Game 5, he made 45 saves. He's got like a .930 save percentage right now. He's killing it. So yeah, credit to the Lightning. They stepped up. They're looking good. They're looking like a good, well-rounded hockey team. And whoever they face in the Eastern Conference Final, I think it's going to be a tough task to get past Tampa Bay.
Definitely. Well, what's interesting on this one is this is the most OT wins that the Bulls have racked up in their postseason at 5, but they're only halfway to meeting the record, which was 10 back in '93 when the Canadians won the Cup against the Kings in the Stanley Cup Final. How important do you think that stat is for this team? I mean, it seems like when these overtime games, do you think that's going to give them such a big advantage, or do you kind of just throw that stat out as, oh, it's kind of cool?
No, I think 100% it gives you a huge advantage. I think overtime and playoffs, I mean, they're huge and they can be turning points in series. I think it was Game 2 that went to overtime. That was a huge turning point in that series. And, I think that those overtime wins is when you really grind it out. You've already played a full 60 minutes of hockey. Sometimes these overtimes go 2, 3, 4. I mean, we saw that Game 1, in the previous series against the Blue Jackets, was just crazy. And they just keep playing these overtime games and they keep winning them, and those are huge. I think those are huge series shifting wins. Like I mentioned, and this series could easily be 3-2 Bruins, but they ended up winning it because they got those 2. So I think it gives teams a huge confidence boost going forward that, hey, if we get past regulation, we're going to find a way to grind it out in OT.
Gotcha. I do give I tip my hat to Vasilevsky. I think that Braden Point is definitely a big candidate as well. I think he's the big reason why they even have an offense. To be honest, he wins. He's had consistent game winners. He's recorded at least a point in all but one of their games. 3 multi-point games. That was even before their last one. 2 overtime goals. So I think he's not a huge star in their lineup, but he's definitely him and Vasilevsky are definitely my high picks for the Conn Smythe out of that off that team. But so we'll see who they're going to play when we move on now to the Islanders Flyers. So thank you, Tyler. Islanders lead the Flyers 3-2. Alex, I asked you to kind of keep track on this one. to me, turnovers have been kind of the Flyers' issue. They just, at least before today, they haven't seemed to get the puck. It was kind of it just seems like they're just, they're continuing their defensive style. The Islanders just swallow up the middle of the ice. They have no chance to get the puck out on the Flyer side. A big issue until today, in my opinion, was Claude Giroux. He is considerably one of the worst postseason players I've seen production-wise. 1 goal in his last 14 games, except for today. He's only mustered 8 assists in that same time. He is driving the 5-on-5 possession side, so I do appreciate that, but he just doesn't produce. Alex, your captain is not scoring consistently every postseason. Does this concern you as a teammate?
Yeah, sometimes it's not all about scoring, obviously, what the captain does.
For sure.
But when your name is Claude Giroux, you need to be scoring more than what you're doing now. But you're 100% right. The Islanders are swallowing up the middle of the ice. Flyers cannot get the puck out of their zone and kind of get their offense set up. Shout out to the Islanders, though. We've been talking about them every single podcast. It feels like we say the same thing. Man, dude, they just swallow teams up. They're so boring, but they're getting the job done. Even in that Game 2 win for the Flyers, I would watch that whole game. The Flyers went up 3-0 early on. They pulled Varlamov, and I was like, dang, okay, here we go. Philly's just going to run them over. No, that was it. The rest of the game, the Islanders just took control. And, Eric's brought it up too. They remind us a lot of when the Kings are in their heyday in their early 2010s. They just swallow teams up. They wait for their spot. Their forechecking has been off the charts, which is, again, how they're swallowing up the middle of the ice, and just the Flyers are just getting stuck in their zone. Sean Couturier is doing a great job. But, yeah, if you're a Philadelphia Flyers fan, staving off elimination today was huge. Try to get that momentum rolling. But, yeah, you need Claude Giroux to start putting pucks in the back of the net.
Yeah, definitely. And I know I give him credit. He scored today. To me, the Islanders are kind of one of the most, I think we've said it, they're one of the most unlikely teams, in my opinion. They don't have much star power. I mean, they have Matt Barzal, cool. A key highlight, interestingly, was their acquisition of Jonji Pajot. He has 7 goals, 2 assists, for 9 points in 13 games. That was before today. As a third-line center. So, that's huge. Do you think that the Islanders have the 2 best goaltenders in the league as a tandem?
As a tandem?
Because to me, it seems like you can throw Greiss or Varlamov out.
Yeah.
You're fine.
Yeah. It sure seems that way right now. Goaltending is how much skill you have as a goaltender. A good part of it is how good your defense is. And obviously, I know we keep just beating this down, but obviously the Islanders are probably the best defensive team left here in the Cup Finals. And yeah, their tandem, when we were talking about how Tyler mentioned you asked for MVPs and you said same thing to me, that was going to be my pick for the Islanders MVP is that goaltending tandem. Varlamov has an off night in Game 2. Greiss comes in, shuts him out. No goals for the rest of the game. Varlamov's been playing off, and since then he's been playing great. And for the Flyers in the same time, I mentioned early on that if they want to continue going on, Carter Hart's got to play well. So,
yes.
And he's been playing fine. But yeah, now that I think about it, yeah, they might have the best 1-2 punch in the net right now.
Yeah, definitely. So in my opinion, I think that I don't know how the Flyers win 2 games. Actually, in this last game, they were down 3-1 and they came back, and the Islanders came back and almost won it in overtime. So I don't I don't know how you feel, but in your view, I assume the Islanders are probably going to move on, right?
I do think they're going to move on. I don't want to say that because the Flyers were my pick to win the Cup,
right.
And what I recall is all of your guys' teams are out. So I'm going to stick with my boys since mine's the last pick that's still in the playoffs. So I'm going to believe in them. But realistically, yeah, the Islanders, I can't imagine the Flyers beat them 2 more times.
Yeah, we'll have to see. It'll be interesting. I think the series is exciting, even though the hockey is not exciting. The way the games are going are exciting, I guess. Well, moving on to the West. Thank you, Alex. We're not going to talk about the game that's going on right now. We're going to let it go as far as it can. Eric, James, I asked you to check tabs on the Stars and Avs. You were very, very on the bandwagon of the Dallas Stars. And, I think some of us kind of questioned that. For me, before this series, I thought, oh, wow, the Stars are done. Whoa, wow, were we wrong? The Stars are just not a boring team. They are scoring 5 goals a game consistently and easily. They score in bunches. They came out strong in the Stars came out strong in the Avs came out strong in Game 4, and they were up 3-1 before the Stars even registered a shot. But then all of a sudden, you look at the last period. I'm sorry, that was Game 4. I was like the last game. Excuse me. You saw the last period, and to me, it was all Stars. If the score wasn't up, I would have said, "Wow, the Stars are winning this game." James, do you feel confident that your Stars are going to come finish the season or series, or what?
Yeah, I do. I'm a huge Stars fan nowadays. Was a Ducks fan, but I think I might be a Stars fan now. The biggest thing about Game 5 was, Ben Bishop came back. That was a mistake.
Yeah,
like the morning skate, he was unfit to play. He played 14 minutes in Game 5 and gave up 4 goals.
Yeah,
the dude, leave it up to Kudobin. He's doing a really good job right now, and they're winning with him in goal in net. So why'd you take him out?
No,
that was a bad call in my opinion. So if it wasn't for Ben Bishop playing, they might have a better shot to win. Maybe they don't give up 5 goals in the first period.
I absolutely agree. I think Rick Bowness kind of made a mistake there. I think that's going to bite them in the ass. But when you're looking at the last half of that game, it was all Stars. They came back. It was just too many goals to come back from. I understand that, but they won the last 2 periods handedly, in my opinion. So, in your opinion, what do the Avs need to get back in this series? I mean, I don't think that they're going to have the chance to beat Ben Bishop again. What do you think they need to do to beat this Stars team, with Hudobin in the net?
I think overall they have to be more physical. If you look at the stats for the last 5 games, for 4 of the 5 games, the team that had the most hits and more blocks, they won the game. And right now, the Avs just aren't as physical as the Stars are. The Stars are just playing bully ball, and they're forcing their will, and it makes people tired and makes you not want to play. But that's what the Stars do, man. They score goals in bunches, and they're physical.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think Pavel Francouz is solid enough for this team to rally behind to win 2 more games?
I don't know. I actually really like Michael Hutchinson. He did really well in his first start. He only gave up 3 goals. He had a 912 save percentage. He did really well.
Mm-hmm.
I liked him better in goal than I did Francouz. He looked a little bit more confident. Francouz looked nervous from the get-go.
Yeah.
He gave up 5 goals in Game 4 before being pulled. I like Michael Hutchinson a lot more, but I do want the Stars to win, so put in Pavel, please.
For sure. So, in your opinion, who are your MVPs for each of these teams? We've talked about Miro Heiskanen, but who do you think is your Stars MVP?
For the Stars, you just said it, Miro Heiskanen. That's my guy. He's a defenseman. He plays the most out of anybody on that Stars team right now. He averages between 25 and 27 minutes per game. He has 4 goals and 10 assists for 14 points in the entire playoff series. Right now, for this playoff series in particular, he has the most points. Mm-hmm. He's a physical dude. He has 15 hits and has 19 blocks on the series. That guy just kills people. And he's only 20 years old, I think, or 22. He's young. He's got a lot of time to develop. He's already really good. I'm excited to watch this guy play. For the Avs, very straightforward, very simple. Anybody could have said this. But Nathan McKinnon, he's pretty much carrying that team. He's 20 points over the entire postseason. He has a +9 point differential throughout the entire playoffs, too. So when he's on the ice, good things happen. And he's a great leader. He's the best player on a team that's super talented. He's probably one of the best players in the league.
Yeah,
he's shines
definitely
for sure.
He's solid second for sure, and could compete. I would have a conversation about first, to be honest with you. And this is coming from a Oilers fan. So, James, I really hope you're right. I'd love to see the Stars move on. I think it's awesome to see these lower hockey markets move on. So we'll stay tuned. The last one of the day, Eric. We have Vegas up 3-1. I'm sorry. I know that two and a half of you in this room or on this Zoom chat hate the Vegas Golden Knights. I am going to stroke them off so hard right now. They are relentless boys. They're faster, stronger. They're deeper than the Canucks. Do they have any? I mean, potentially of any Western team, in my opinion. Eric, I understand. It's 15:38 left up where I'm at. It's 2-1 Vancouver. Do you honestly think that Vancouver can win 3 games in a row?
Are you standing up right now?
I am absolutely standing up.
Yeah, I could tell you're going tonight. My heart believes they can win 3 games. My brain believes they cannot win 3 games in a row on Vegas. I hate to say it. It seems even that they're up 2-1 right now in 15 minutes. Vegas is going to fucking come back. They do it every time. Game 3, the Canucks just got mollywopped. I think they lost 3-0, but it was just like, you know what that game reminded me of? That Vegas is kind of like the Islanders of the West. They're boring to watch, frustrating, and they just keep winning.
Oh, dude.
No one likes to watch them.
Dude, oh my God. Okay, you want my rant to be there?
And hold on, but I mean, following the back-to-back, that game 3 they got mollywopped. Next day they play again, and they have a 3-goal fucking third period. It didn't surprise me at all. But to me, they're boring to watch. They have a similar style to the Islanders where they eat you up at center ice. They don't let you get the puck in the zone, and when they go up 2-0, they just pounce on the puck and frustrate you. That game they won 3-0. That's exactly what happened. The first game they won, they scored 5 goals, but that same shit happened. I think it was 3-0 going into the third. They're frustrating. They don't give you a lot of chances once they go up. That's to me what reminds me of the Islanders and them.
That's fair.
Last thing I'll say is that I bet $100 on Vegas to lose, so I'm going to be in debt. And I'm going to bet on the Stars in the Western Conference Finals to beat Vegas so I break even and not have to owe $200.
Well, you actually answered one of my questions was objectively, not subjectively, is this the most fun hockey squad to watch? You said no. If you watch this team and they don't have a Golden Knights jersey on, the way they transition the puck, the way they pass, the way they forecheck this is what a hockey fan thrives. This is what we watch. This is what I look for. There's no Oilers team in the past 10 years that would even come close to this team. It's not even a contest. This team is so fun to watch, in my opinion. I absolutely love watching them. Are they my favorite team? No. Right now, yes, they are. I love watching them play. Eric, who are your MVPs for the Vegas Golden Knights and the Canucks? Assuming one of them were to win the Cup tomorrow.
For Vegas, I'm going to go with Shea Theodore. Puck-moving defenseman, also scores many important goals, gets losses. He's pretty much involved on every point on the ice. And to me, we beat the dead horse, the Kings. He's their Doughty. He's like their guy that runs the puck through the zone, gets the clear going. He's at the point on the power play. He's vocal. I bet everyone loves him in the locker room. And then it's even funny the Ducks, that's who they gave up when Vegas became a team. And look at what he's doing now. It's a classical Anaheim Ducks maneuver. But I'd go Theodore with the Canucks. With Vegas. With Canucks, I'm going to go Pettersson.
Yeah, I think that's a good choice.
But I was going to say Toffoli, but he's only played like 2 games. But the 2 games he's played he's been phenomenal, like scoring and getting assists. And that's my Kings bias. But Pettersson he just scored tonight to get them to go up. He's been all over the ice. He's been getting goals, assists, everything. He's helping the power play out. He's a young guy. This is his first time in the playoffs. You got to give him credit for what he's doing. I hope they can at least push it to a game 6. Be nice to have some more hockey on, the next few days.
Yeah, no, we all love more hockey. I absolutely love this series. So, the longer that the Canucks can hold out the Vegas Golden Knights, I think the better for someone like me who loves it. I'm with you though. I like those MVP picks. That kind of wraps it up. What's going to happen? It looks like both of the Eastern teams are coming over to Edmonton for the conference finals. Both of them will be played in the Edmonton bubble, which kind of makes sense because the Stanley Cup final was going to be played there. So it only makes sense just to bring over the conferences, and then they can kind of manage one bubble for the next, last 3-4 weeks. Boys, it's getting close. I'm loving the hockey. Really loving the Western matchups. I think they're way more fun to watch than the Eastern, unfortunately. But that just is my Western bias. But with that, that's hockey. Next week, we're going to see who's in the conference final.
And on Train, great job as always. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to take a trip to the Orlando bubble, and Alex is going to give us an update on the NBA playoffs. All right, everybody, welcome back. We are taking a trip to Orlando in Florida, and Alex is going to give us an update on the NBA playoffs. We got still some of the first round finishing up while the second round is going on, so a little interesting schedule that's been going on. Alex, what do you got?
Yeah, it's a weird schedule. Part of that does have to do with, obviously, we talked about earlier with taking a couple-day break to meet and decide if they want to continue on. But we'll start in the East. So the Eastern, it's very strange. The Eastern semis, both of those series are already going and have already had games finish. So same thing, like kind of what we just did with Tradon. I kind of assigned some teams to the guys. So or series, I guess. So James, we'll talk about game one with the Bucks and the Heat. Again, the Milwaukee Bucks, the number one seed, have lost the first game of the series. They lost 115-104 to the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler went off for a career high in the playoffs with 40. I asked you the same question when they lost game one of the Magic a week and a half ago. A little bit different now. Are you worried about the Bucks?
Answer's still the same, and it's no. I'm not worried about the Bucks. I think this might just be the Bucks' new thing, lose game one of the series. I mean, albeit the Heat are a good team. They're balanced all the way around. This will be a good competitive matchup all the way through. Now I prefer Bucks win in 6, not in 5, but in 6. Like this will be back and forth. It'll be a lot of fun to watch. One big thing of note, though, is that their starting point guard for the Bucks, Eric Bledsoe, was out in game one, and he could be out longer. He has a hamstring issue going on. He averaged 11.6 points per game. So that's a pretty big blow for a team that only lost by, I don't know how many points. How did they lost by 9 points? 11 points.
That's 11, yeah. Math is hard.
Yep.
Okay.
So, yeah, basically, it'll be a fun matchup to watch. Giannis is going to dominate again, although last game he didn't. He almost had a triple-double. He only put up 20 or 18 points. It wasn't quite as 30 that he's gotten in round one. It'll still be very fun to watch, though. It'll be good.
Yeah. I kind of think the Heat are one of those teams that are not getting enough love. Those top three teams, which did come out of their first round matchups, the Bucks, the Celtics, and the Raptors, were, us sort of picked, or one of us at least picked one of those three teams to come out of the East. None of us gave much love to the Heat, but the Heat do a lot of things right. And I think the Heat might be one of the better teams to guard Giannis. Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo are two guys that can really match up with, obviously no one can 100% guard Giannis. It's impossible. But they're two guys, probably the tandem other than Paul George and Kawhi Leonard that you'd want to throw at somebody like Giannis. I think they're a little underrated. I don't think people are giving them enough title contention threat. I think this is going to be a much more competitive series than we expect. Obviously, the Heat showed up and really kind of surprised the Bucks and kind of put them on their heels a little bit. I do expect the Bucks to come out and win game 2. It will be very interesting to see how this series goes. I do expect it to go 6 or 7. That's a very interesting series. Moving over to the other Eastern Conference series going on, we got the Boston Celtics already up 2-0 on the Toronto Raptors. So far, once the actual playoffs have started, Celtics are 6-0. They swept the Sixers in the first round, and now they won game 1, 112-94. So like a pretty pretty big defeat there for the Toronto Raptors, who were the team that I did pick to come out of the East. And then 102-99, so a little bit closer there in that second game. Tradon, I let you talk about this one. What do you think? Are you worried about the Raptors? They're already down 2-0. What do you think?
100%. I'm worried about them. I'm not really worried about them. I don't care if they win. I'd rather see Boston win because I hate Toronto. Sorry to my Canadian family. I know you love your Raptors, but sorry, I just don't see them winning the series. I expect the Celtics to win in 6. I mean, let's just look at what happened. Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart each scored 21 in game 1. Kemba Walker added 18. And the Celtics never trailed that whole game. Siakam has been their go-to guy this whole season, and for the past 2 games, he had an okay game too, but his fourth quarter was so bad. You know, he scores 2 points in the fourth, and he stepped out of bounds. I know that can happen to anyone, but you are the new. Yeah, I'm not going to say you're Kawhi Leonard, but you are the new guy. You know, those are your minutes. Those are what make you a superstar, and he needs to shine in those situations. And if he's not, you know, the pressure is going to be on him going forward, and he needs to step up. Toronto has bigger size, but they're not using it. They're just getting beat up and down the court. It seems in some cases they just, you know, even in last game, it looks like they were scoring well under their percentage, you know, that they should have. They're only, you know, really scoring corner threes, you know, the whole game. They were really dominated, you know, in the middle of the court. You know, I worry. You know, it seems like there might be some reffing issues. You know, it looks like there was a free throw disparity that was questionable this past game, where the Celtics went to the line 9 times before the Toronto even recorded 1. Jason Tatum alone went 14 times, which is almost as many as the Raptors did the whole game. So some, you know, Raptors fans will argue that there's some questionable officiating, but you gotta play through that, in my opinion. I will say this: it wasn't too long ago that the Raps were down 2-0 against the Milwaukee Bucks last year in the conference semis. So, you know, this could just be another, you know, they'll sweep the next 4 games. Boom, they're in. I just don't see it unless Siakam can pull up his socks here.
Yeah, this series is I thought it was going to be much closer. It does seem like the Celtics have kind of just grabbed the Raptors by their testicles and just sort of twisted them a little bit and been like, we're the big boys in this series. Kyle Lowry was hurt. You know, he is the longest tenured Raptor. He's a big leader of that team, so it'll be interesting to see kind of, you know, how he performs if and when he comes back. Yeah, I am, you know, as someone who picked the Raptors to come out of the East, I'm a little worried now. I was not expecting them to go down 2-0. I was kind of hoping for a split, and these first 2 games are obviously up 2-0. That didn't happen. But yeah, I 100% agree with you. Siakam is the dude now. Like, he's the guy. He needs to step up. I am expecting a better showing from him in Game 3. We will see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very interesting series to watch, though.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving over to the Western Conference, almost actually breaking news because this game just ended. Game 7 between the Nuggets and the Jazz just finished within the last 15, 20 minutes. Weird game. The Nuggets pulled it out. It was 80-78. Very strange for today's NBA, where it's almost everyone drops at least to triple digits every time. The Denver is now only the 12th team to come back from a 3-1 deficit. No NBA team has ever done it, which I find interesting. Jokic dropped 30 in this game. He is the star of that Denver Nuggets team. Kind of crazy ending. Donovan Mitchell got the ball stripped. The Nuggets on the other end missed generally like a pretty wide open layup. And then Mitchell was still down on his offensive side of the court. Mike Conley brings the ball up. Mitchell's literally standing there, arms up, open for that 3. Conley kind of forces one. It almost drops in, and they lose by 2 points. So the Nuggets will be moving on to face the Los Angeles Clippers, who pretty much just stomped on Luka Doncic and the Mavs in those last 2 games and said, all right, Luka, we gave you your moment, but we're the Clippers. We're an actual top contender. We'll show you what's up. So, Eric, Clippers, Nuggets now. I'm kind of excited that we get, you know, an actual decision, and we have that series set up. What do you think about this Clips Nuggets series?
Shit, the Nuggets are a sneaky team. We've talked about them before. You can't count them out. And I can get into all the stats, with the Clippers and all that stuff as well. But it'd be like telling Kawhi he just broke a record. He's just going to sit there and stare at you with no emotion, probably not say a word either. So what I'm going to really talk about more is the matchups that are going to go down in that series. Because, we got to talk about Gary Harris. Or wait, what's his fucking name? Murray. Jamal Murray. That's his name. Yeah. Gary Harris is good too, but Jamal Murray is their guy. Clips are going to need Pat Bev. He was out most of the series against Mavericks. And, it kind of came back to haunt him a little bit when Luka went off on his 2 games. Or, pretty much every game he went off. But they're going to need Pat Bev to do his job and be a dog on Murray. And then, you got Jokic. And Clippers got Zubac, but Zubac is coming into his own. But Jokic is a pure superstar over there. He's the guy you want the ball with in the fourth quarter to be clutch. He had like a fadeaway, like one-handed skyhook earlier, I think, to put him up 80-78 in that game. So it's going to be a matchup battle. And, PG, he had his off showings in that Mavs series, but he's going to have to come out full throttle in this one because that Murray's going to go off for them. That Jokic is going to go off. It's going to be the bench players, I think, the battle of the benches. The bench didn't do so well for the Clippers, actually, in that first series. So I keep bringing up Lou Will and Trez, and they didn't do much. They're going to have to do a lot more in this series. I think it goes 6 games. Hopefully Clips pull it off in 6 games.
Yeah. The bench is really interesting because the Clippers bench was pretty much the best bench in the NBA all season. So they are going to have to show up. The Nuggets are a very good team. We talked about it last week, how Donovan Mitchell was one of only 3 players to drop 50 twice in a series. Well, now there's 4 because Jamal Murray also did it twice in this series, which is incredible. So now it's Michael Jordan, Allen Iverson, Donovan Mitchell, and Jamal Murray. Between those 2 guys that dropped 50 twice, there was a really nice moment there at the end of the game. Mitchell was lying face down on the court, just heartbroken by how that game ended. Murray came over, kind of gave him a pat on the back, said, "Yo, man, what a series." I think, the Nuggets and the Jazz, they're close together geographically. I think that's going to be a really fun rivalry going forward. And shout out to Donovan Mitchell. He's been one of those guys that's been very outspoken during this whole process, going through the social injustice that we talked about earlier. I think Donovan Mitchell is a superstar, and I'm really interested to see how he comes back. But yeah, the Clippers bench, to move kind of on to the second round, the Clippers bench needs to show up. Paul George needs to play better. I do expect the Clippers to move out of that series just because Paul George and Kawhi can guard Jamal Murray. No one can really guard Jokic. I don't think Zubac really has much of a shot to guard him, but I think the Clippers' overall depth will bring them forward. Moving on to the last, potential series. So Tyler, we're going to kind of go through 2 things with you. So we got Game 7 coming up tomorrow night, the Rockets and the Thunder. Chris Paul pretty much took out his dick, slapped James Harden and Russell Westbrook with it, and said, "Nah, man, we're going to Game 7." The end of that game, Russell Westbrook looked awful. This was the first game he'd played in the series. They had a chance to win it, and he threw the ball away. He had at least 7 turnovers in that game. So first thing, what do you expect? What are you looking forward to in Game 7, Rockets Thunder?
Yeah, I think it's been a great series. I think OKC has put up a bigger of a fight than I think some people expected out of this series. As you mentioned, I think Chris Paul is just carrying that team right now. I think it's going to come down to those 2 guys, Chris Paul versus Russell Westbrook. Which guy is going to step up and be the better performer in that Game 7? I think Houston takes Game 7. I just think that they've been the more. I think they're the more talented team here. But OKC, they kind of have that it factor, that kind of thing about them that, it's kind of hard to explain it, but they kind of come up clutch when they need to. They proved that in the last game, and I think OKC could win it too. I think it's a toss up in Game 7, but my gut's going with Houston.
Okay, I disagree. I'm going to go Thunder. Russell Westbrook is not 100%. He does not seem right. He looked awful. End of the game, he had a little short, maybe 15-footer, straight air ball. Great play by James Harden, though. Off the baseline, grabbed it, tossed it off of Dario Gallinari. It was a great play. Would have been the play of the game if then Russell Westbrook didn't turn the ball over again on the very next possession. So yeah, Chris Paul is leading that Thunder team. He's one of the great leaders in the NBA. He gets a lot of bad rap. I think Chris Paul is a little bit like Michael Jordan, where he's going to push, or like Kobe, he's going to push his team to perform at their highest. And he's obviously done that so far with the Thunder. So Tyler, the next question, whichever team comes out of that Game 7, they'll be facing your Los Angeles Lakers, number 1 seed, who after that rocky start in Game 1 against the Trailblazers really just showed their muscles. Game 5 was pretty much just a throwaway game. Dame was hurt. CJ McCollum this whole time has actually been playing with a fractured back, so mad respect to him because that's incredible. If I have like a little backache, I'm like, I can't do anything. So
can't cook the dishes.
I can't cook. I can't do the dishes. No, but he's playing in an NBA playoff game with a partially fractured back. So CJ McCollum, you're a beast. Congratulations to you for just surviving, I guess. After watching that Lakers series, how do you feel now that they won 4 in a row? They looked really good. Their defense stepped up. Their offense looked better. What are you feeling depending on, whatever team comes out of that Game 7?
Yeah, I'm a lot more confident in this Lakers team than I was kind of going into their first-round matchup against the Trailblazers. They looked, like I mentioned earlier, a little bit rusty, not really clicking on all the cylinders for whatever reason. But I guess they're able to turn on that switch when they need to. After that Game 1 loss, they're like, all right, we got to step up. We really got to get going. That's what they did. And ever since then, it's been just domination. Classic Lakers, the Lakers that we've seen all season long. So I'm a lot more confident no matter who they face, whether it's OKC or Houston, that they're going to win the series. Obviously, I think both Houston and OKC are a better team than Portland. So I think it's going to be more than 5 games. I think it's probably going to go 6 or 7 again. But yeah, as a Lakers fan, I'm feeling good right now, just with whoever they face, be it Houston or OKC, that they'll win that series.
Yeah. When LeBron is pulling out the Dame dollar shot from the logo, the Lakers are unstoppable. If he's going to hit threes from the logo, and if LeBron James shoots 3-ball well, you can't beat the Lakers. Anthony Davis is literally unguardable. If LeBron James shoots well, what do you either guard him on the shot, or you're just going to give up the jam because even at 35, he's going to blow by you. LeBron James proved in that series that he can turn it on in the playoffs just like he has for the last 17 years. LeBron James is still the best player in the NBA. He can turn it on like nobody else. Respect to Giannis, respect to Dame, respect to James Harden, but no one is LeBron James. I think this Laker team is destined to meet probably the Clippers in the Western Conference Final. I think everyone in the NBA from day one of this season has been looking forward to that series. I hope we get it. You never know though. Surprises will happen, but the NBA playoffs are getting really interesting really quickly. So guys, definitely tune in. And pay attention to what those guys are saying. They've got a lot to say. They're all, they're intelligent guys. Go out and vote. Listen to them. They're working really hard to make this country a better place.
Alex, thank you again for your NBA update. We're going to take a break. When we come back, James is going to take us through his final NFL division, the AFC South.
Oh, thank God.
All right, guys, welcome back. You guys, we made it. James is taking through his final division preview. It's the AFC South. Save the best for last, right?
Definitely.
We also had a couple fantasy football drafts this week. So the one that we're all in, we had last Thursday. If you guys want to talk about that a little bit. But first of all, James, I'll let you take it away with the AFC South.
Ladies and gentlemen, we did it. Didn't think we could do it, but we're here. Last division. Huge shout out to all the co-hosts here for taking over hosting duties whenever I was supposed to, so I could finish up. So thanks, guys. I appreciate it. We're gonna start with the best team in the league last year. Just kidding, they suck. But the Jacksonville Jaguars. In 2019, they went 6-10. It's weird because they're only a couple years removed from when they had one of the best defenses in the NFL. Their head coach is Doug Marrone. Last year, they were 26th in total offense and 21st in total defense. Their weakness going into the offseason was a linebacker. Their linebacking group had an average grade of 43 from Pro Football Focus, and that's out of 100, so they were bad. People who moved on in the offseason, they lost a couple small pieces through free agency, but they basically traded away their best players traded away the best players. The first one is Nick Foles. He was traded to the Chicago Bears. AJ Boye traded to the Broncos. Calais Campbell, he was traded to the Ravens. We talked about him in our second episode, and he's the third best defensive lineman in the league. And they also recently just traded away Yannick Ngakoue to the Vikings. They went into the draft and they picked up C.J. Henderson in the first round and Levon Chizone in the first as well. And in the second, they picked up a wide receiver, Laviska Shenault Jr., who is giving a lot of hype in camp right now. So he's a name to look out for. They went into free agency and they picked up Joe Schobert from the Browns. He had 133 tackles last season, so he's good. He's a good tackling machine. And Tyler Eifert has been injured the majority of his career. My prediction is that they go 2-14.
Oh,
A couple of years ago, the Jacksonville Jags were referred to as Saxonville because they were one of the scariest defenses in the league and just destroyed your offense. During this last offseason and season, they got rid of literally everyone who made that defense what it was. Although they signed an above-average linebacker in Joe Schobert, their defense got worse. Pretty much the only good thing about their offense is that you could win a year's supply of Bud Light if you win your fantasy football league with Gardner Minshew, but the chances of that happening are slim to none behind their horrendous offensive line. Oh, yeah, and star running back Leonard Fournette literally just got released. Bottom line, Jags are devoid of talent and will be one of the worst teams in the league. Tyler, let's start with you. What do you think?
Yeah, that Leonard Fournette one kind of screwed me over a little bit. Drafted him in fantasy football, so kind of figuring out what I need to do with that. James, you sent me a trade offer. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, I should. Probably not
you
gonna
accept it live on this podcast.
What's the trade offer? Let's
Breaking
hear it.
news.
Yeah,
Leonard Fournette for Wyquell Armstead.
Mm-hmm. So who's in, the running to be, the Jaguars' new running back? But I mean, Raquel Armstead, I don't even know who that is. So I don't know if that's the right move. I'm gonna kind of wait and see what happens with Fournette. Hopefully he gets picked up by a team and will, still be a fantasy contributor this season. But yeah, that's annoying. But yeah, as far as the Jaguars go, I agree with you, James. I don't see a whole lot here. I gave them 5-11. I gave them a few extra wins just because I think they got some talent on the offensive side of the ball, even with Fournette being gone. But yeah, apparently also too, like the leadership of this team is like pretty bad, and the players hate playing for this team. So I don't think the whole clubhouse atmosphere is great either over there in Jacksonville. So yeah, I gave him 5-11. Just as a little gift, I gave him a few extra wins. But yeah, not going to be a fun season in Jacksonville.
Tradon?
Yeah, I actually gave him 5 wins. I don't even know why. I guess I believe in Gardner Minshew the first of his name. I believe that he's I love it. I love his attitude. Is he the greatest? No, but his attitude is infectious, and that's enough for me to give him 5 wins. But guys, they're a young team. 68 players will have 4 less years of experience. 39 were not even on the team last year. I think you're just going to see another losing season. It's going to struggle. I don't know anything about Armstead. Tyler Eifert is a joke, in my opinion, because he's always hurt. So I don't know who he even throws to besides DJ Chark, but we'll get to that later, I'm sure.
Alex?
Yeah, I'm going 2-14. It's going to be a real sad year in Jacksonville. You got to feel bad for those guys. I feel like they had one great year, and they've just been terrible. literally, I feel like in my entire life, the Jacksonville Jaguars have just been a joke. I don't expect much out of them. They'll get the number 1 overall pick. Hope maybe they'll get Trevor Lawrence. We'll go from there.
And Eric.
Yeah, I had them at actually 6-10, and then the Leonard Fournette shit that happened today. But I was going with the whole Gardner Minshew diamond in the rough. He's got a good attitude. He's going to pull his team out to win six games. But he won't now because Leonard Fournette left this morning. And, yeah, fuck, man. 2 years ago, this team was 1 quarter away from the Super Bowl. They were playing the Patriots, and that's fucking, we know what happens when you play the Patriots. They just fucking win all the time and go to the Super Bowl. And they ended up losing to the Eagles that year, surprisingly. But their defense is a black hole, and they're going to be trash this year.
I agree with that. Moving on to fantasy here, we're going to start with Gardner Minshew II. His ADP is 166, QB 24. The most interesting about Gardner Minshew II is that there's no Gardner Minshew I, as Tradon alluded to earlier, because dad's name is Flint, and his grandfather's name is Beowulf. But his dad wanted to name him the second of something, so now he's Gardner Minshew II. Unless you're a big Bud Light guy, don't draft him. It's not worth it. Leonard Fournette is next. ADP is 38, running back 15 at the time. Now he's pretty much going undrafted because he doesn't have a team. He's a true workhorse back, or he was, and he played in 88% of the snaps for Jacksonville. Tyler, you drafted Fournette. Where do you think he'll sign?
Oh man, that's anyone's guess. All I know is I hope it's with the team that he'll get a huge carry load because, as you mentioned last year, I saw a stat last year. I think it was he just got like 88% of the carries on as a running back.
What I just said a second ago. Yeah.
Oh, shit, my bad. Eric distracted me with his hockey comment. Yeah, I mean,
something to think about though is that he might sign with the Colts, as my buddy Matt from Indiana mentioned to me. That would be kind of scary.
Yeah,
that offensive line is insane to talk about, but I mean that's something to think. Like,
that
if he's there, I'd keep him.
Yeah, that'd be great. That's why I'm gonna keep Fournette for now. I'm gonna see where he ends up. Hopefully, he ends up with someone.
Daniel Jones for him.
No. So yeah, no. I mean, my hope is that he ends up with a team that's gonna give him some good fantasy points. I'm just crossing my fingers for that.
Last, we're going to talk about DJ Chark Jr., and he's actually a junior. ADP 72, wide receiver 27. In our draft, he went as pick 54, which is way, way higher than what he should be drafted at. And Mike, I don't know why you did that. Tradon, you drafted Keenan Allen right before Chark got taken. Prefer Keenan Allen to DJ Chark.
Well, with risk of sounding like an idiot, because I actually know who Keenan Allen is.
Okay, there it is. Plain and simple, ladies and gentlemen. He knows Keenan Allen. Moving on to the Indianapolis Colts now. 2019, they were 7-9. It was a weird season for them because they had Andrew Luck when preseason started, but then after the third or fourth preseason game, he retired. So that was weird. They're coached by Frank Wright. He used to be the offensive coordinator for the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl. They were 17th in total offense, 18th in total defense. Their weakness going into the offseason was QB. Jacoby Brissett did a really good job, but he was pretty inaccurate. He had a 23.9% uncatchable pass rate, which is second worst in the NFL. In addition to that, they need better and more reliable wide receiver options because T.Y. Hilton's great, but he deals with injuries often. And as a group, they were 30th in the NFL in yards. People who moved on is Clayton Gathers, Jawal Shear, Joe Haig, and Eric Ebron. Michael Pittman, a wide receiver from USC, is a really good guy. And Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin in the second round, he's built like a linebacker, and he's NCAA's 6th all-time rusher. Puts up a lot of yards, hit 50 touchdowns. Crazy. They went into the offseason and they signed Phillip Rivers from the Chargers, and they traded for DeForest Buckner, and they also signed Xavier Rhodes from the Vikings. He had an off year last year, but he was a Pro Bowler in 2018. If he can regain that Pro Bowl level form, he's going to be a huge addition to this defense. My prediction is that the Colts take a huge step forward here, and they end up as 10-6, and they win the division. The Colts saw their biggest weaknesses this last offseason was signing Phillip Rivers and drafting Michael Pittman Jr. from USC. I agree that Rivers is no longer an elite arm talent, but he's miles better than Jacoby Brissett will ever be. And with a better offensive line, he's going to perform much better than he did with the Chargers. This O-line might be the best in football. Their defense is largely the same, but they added one of the best defensive linemen in DeForest Buckner, and they should be a top 10 behind the new development and leadership of Darius Leonard. Tradon, what do you think?
Yeah, I have him 10-6, but that would be second in the division for me, but we'll get to that later. Yeah, man, I think this is a huge potential turnaround here. Phillip Rivers comes to Indy with an infusion of young talent. I think he was sought after. He's had a relationship with Frank Reich in the past, so he already knows 80% of the playbook, which is give or take, which is definitely a huge plus. To me, I mean, I drafted T.Y. Hilton, so I need him to do well. Barring injuries, I think that he's a solid player. He's had multiple seasons over 1,000 yards. Also, like you said, Buckner from the Niners has come to Indy. I think you're going to see a big turnaround and a team that's going to be very fun to watch.
Alex?
I have them also at 10-6, also winning the division. I think Michael Pittman Jr. is a huge pickup for them to be kind of the other wide receiver that's not T.Y. Hilton. You need more than one. I think Jonathan Taylor is a low-key, sneaky pick for them. I can't believe he fell to the second round. Phillip Rivers, I agree with you, James, is much, much better than Jacoby Brissett. No hate for him. He's a good quarterback. He's got some work to do, obviously. He's still young-ish. He can work on that. I got him at 10-6. My only worry is Phillip Rivers. The Chargers were weird last year. They were really hard to kind of determine what they played like and how Phillip Rivers was like. If he shows his age and falls off, the Colts are screwed. But I generally think they're the best team in this division, so I'm gonna give them a 10-6 record, and they're gonna make the playoffs.
Eric?
10-6. Phillip Rivers got pretty much fucked last year. I mean, the team around him wasn't. He also shit the bed every red zone showing. He was fourth in the NFL in passing yards, but he had a terrible red zone scoring. He threw many picks in the red zone, which is like a nightmare. But I think Rivers will give him a spark. They got T.Y. Hilton and Funchess with him. And I have their
he opted out.
And they don't have Funchess. And I have their D in fantasy, so I'm hoping they do well. And I got them at 10-6.
And lastly, Tyler.
Also 10-6, winning the division. Wow. I'm not 100% sold Phillip Rivers is going to be great. I kind of echo what Alex saying. I take him as a concern just with his age, and he did have a weird season last year. But he is, I think, one of the best quarterbacks in the league in terms of just his history and how well he's performed, even with the Chargers for all those years. And he did improve their quarterback position for sure. So, Colts 10-6.
Phillip Rivers right now is going at 167, QB 27. He's largely going undrafted. Depending on how the season pans out, he could be a really interesting waiver wire guy. Let's go ahead and tackle the running back group. Jonathan Taylor is going at 58, running back 22, while Marlon Mack is going at 135, running back 42. Taylor is a superior talent by far, but he's a rookie, and Marlon Mack is the starter right now, according to Frank Reich. But Taylor's being drafted about 70 spots ahead of Marlon Mack. Alex, who do you think provides better value at their ADP?
At their ADP, probably Marlon Mack. Especially if Jonathan Taylor is not the starter right away, he is obviously a much better football player overall. But yeah, as a rookie, when you're not the guy, you got to go. Marlon Mack is not some scrub either. He's a very good running back. People do not give him credit. So at his ADP, Marlon Mack for sure.
Okay. T.Y. Hilton, ADP 60.8, wide receiver 23. He's projected for 211 points. Last year, he was wide receiver 57 because of injuries. So, Eric, does T.Y. stay healthy this season?
Yes. He's got the best offensive line in the league, as you said, so yes.
And how does that help him as a wide receiver?
He gets open, and Rivers gives him the ball, and he scores. And he's healthy.
Okay. Will he be a top 20 wide receiver?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Moving on to the Tennessee Titans here. They're a pretty surprise team. In 2019, they were 9-7. They officially moved on from Marcus Mariota and with the emergence of Ryan Tannehill. Their head coach is Mike Vrabel. They ranked number 10 in total offense, number 12 in total defense. Their biggest weakness going into the offseason was a pass rusher. They only had a pressure rate of 32%, which is 27th in the league, and they only had one pass pressure rate of 10% higher, and that's Cameron Wake, who's no longer with the team. They lost a couple of big guys on their team. Jack Conklin, he signed with the Browns for $42 million. Marcus Mariota obviously went to the Raiders. Logan Ryan just signed with the Giants for $7 million. Tajay Sharp is gone. Deion Lewis is gone. And Pro Bowler defensive end Gerald Casey is also gone. They went to the draft and picked up Isaiah Wilson in the first round. He's a tackle. He's a big dude. He's 6'7", 350, mammoth of a man. And they picked up Christian Fulton in the second. They went and got Vic Beasley from the Falcons, who had 8 sacks last season, and also some offensive line depth, and Tyler Sambrio from the Falcons as well. My prediction is that they go 9-7. I think the Titans take another step forward, but it doesn't necessarily reflect in their standings. Their offense relies heavily on the running back, and luckily for them, they have one of the best, most physical running backs in the game. In addition to that, A.J. Brown showed a lot of promise in his rookie season, and he can develop into one of the best receivers if he has the right leadership. Their defense similar to what it did last year, but the addition of Vic Beasley should help them with their pass rush. Although the Titans lost a couple of key veteran pieces, they replaced them with promising rookies, and these rookies really need to step up for the Titans to have success. Alex, what do you think?
I also have them at 9-7. It's really annoying me that we're agreeing on all of these. I think Derrick Henry is a monster. Why I don't give them a 10-6 record and have them kind of have a tiebreaker with the Colts is I'm a little worried about his workload. He actually, I think, put all other 52 guys on his massive shoulders and carried them into the playoffs last year. And I'm a little worried he's going to break down at some point. If not, they could end up winning this division very easily. I got them at 9-7. If it comes down to if Derrick Henry can stay healthy and control that offensive tempo, they're going to go great. If they're screwed.
Eric?
I don't agree. I have them at 10-6. Derrick Henry is the new age beast mode, in my opinion. Tannehill struck lightning last year, and I think they're going to be able to carry on with it. They had the number 9 defense in the league, always a plus. They took out the GOAT, Tom Brady, and made him leave New England. I think they're going to ride that energy. Yeah, you gotta be worried, though, with Derrick Henry carrying the whole team on his back. But I have them going 10-6. I think good things are coming to this team, and they got that solid leader of a coach, Vrabel, to help them carry that on.
Tyler?
Yeah, I also have it at 9-7. I agree. Just think on the defensive side, I don't know if they're as good as they were last year. I think Derrick Henry, as I mentioned, is an absolute stud. I think Ryan Tannehill can carry over what he did last year. I think it was a big turning point for him last season. So I think it's going to be a hard-fought battle between the Colts and Titans for this division, but I think that the Titans will just fall short.
And Tradon?
12-4, boys.
Oh my gosh! Okay.
First in the division.
I can't wait for these kids to be rattled with you on Instagram.
No, I can't wait either. Well, Alex said he didn't want everyone agreeing, but to be fair, I had this in mind before. They were the team that knocked down the reign of Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. They knocked out Lamar Jackson, and they only lost to the eventual Stanley Cup champions, Super Bowl champions. Excuse me. I'm excited what Tannehill is going to do this for the entire season. In my opinion, I don't see their defense as having a glaring hole. I don't think there's anything that's glaring. I think they're going to be solid, and I think this is going to be a bit better. Derrick Henry will continue to be great. A.J. Brown is giving me promise. I may be going on a limb here, but I think that they have a chance to be the top in the division. Call me crazy, but that's just a feeling.
They're crazy.
Ryan Tannehill is ADP is 158, quarterback number 20. Tradon, Jared Goff is only at 156, so just 2 spots ahead. If you had to pick from the two, who would you pick and why?
That's a tough one. Tannehill's tough. He does have a pretty low TD to interception ratio, which is concerning. But Goff has kind of took a step back last year. It's tough. I would actually, I guess, I'm going to go with Tannehill. I'm going to be honest. I have to go with
Big Titans guy.
Sorry?
You're a big Titans guy right now.
Yeah, I guess so.
Derrick Henry is going at 7.4, running back number 6. 300 days last season, absolute workhorse back. Tyler, you drafted Dalvin Cook at pick number 5, while Derrick Henry went number 7 in our league. What made you pick Dalvin Cook over Derrick Henry?
I was a tough. I was a lot of good guys that drafted number 5. For me, it's kind of you just kind of go with your gut on that one. I don't really dive deep into the statistics on that one. I just kind of go. I look at the board. I kind of gauge what I see and kind of go with my gut. And I can't really explain my gut. It just is what it is.
Your gut is your brain.
I don't know. It's not really my brain because I don't really overthink it. I don't try and dive into the stats and try to, determine what's what, honestly, I won a fantasy football 3 times off my gut in drafts. So I think it works pretty well. So
you went against your rankings though. You had Derrick Henry ahead of Dalvin Cook. So I'm kind of confused.
Ooh. Yeah, that's the second time I've done that.
I have a tendency of going against
Saquon over Christian.
We do the facts.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to bring it up.
You're a liar. Moving on to AJ Brown. He's going at 47.2, wide receiver 18. He's a budding star right now. He had the second most fantasy points after week 11 at the wide receiver position. He also had 8 touchdowns, which I think is unsustainable, but we'll see. Alex, you had AJ Brown. Do you think AJ Brown finishes as a top 15 wide receiver when his ADP right now is a wide receiver 18?
No. And my worry is that if Derrick Henry stays healthy, they're going to use him as the focal point of the offense, and Tannehill's not going to throw enough, which is why the earlier question I would pick Goff because Goff's going to throw it all the time. I worry that Tannehill is not going to throw it enough. If you watch those playoff games, they literally just let Derrick Henry do his thing. Tannehill was kind of like the second tier. Obviously the quarterback's going to hand it off, but I don't think he can finish in the top 15 is kind of what it comes down to now.
Okay. The last team we're ever going to cover for this year, at least, is the Houston Texans.
Woo!
In 2019, they were 10-6. Their head coach is Bill O'Brien, who's also their GM. He also fucked their team up big time. Made a lot of mistakes here. They ranked number 19 for total offense, number 18 and 14 total offense, 19 total defense. Sorry. Their weakness going into the offseason is a cornerback. They had a coverage grade that was higher than only the Dolphins. They allowed a passer rating of 128.9 when targeted, which is really bad, guys. They lost their best player in DeAndre Hopkins. They traded him to the Cardinals. Terrible move, in my opinion. He's a generational talent. I don't know why you did that. They also lost their starting running back in Carlos Hyde to the Seahawks. Jonathan Joseph went to the Titans, and DJ Reader signed with the Bengals, who had 6 tackles for loss last season. They drafted Ross Blaylock, a defensive tackle, and Jonathan Greenard, a linebacker from Florida. They went in and they traded for David Johnson when they traded away DeAndre Hopkins. He's 3 years removed from having a 1,000 rushing and almost 1,000 receiving season. But that was 3 years ago, and ever since then, he hasn't really done much. They also traded for Brandon Cooks from the Rams, and they signed Randall Cobb from the Cowboys. My prediction is that this team goes 8-8. Trading away one of your best players rarely ever bodes well for a team, and it certainly won't here. Bill O'Brien is on a major power trip and doesn't have any sense of direction for this team. He traded away a top 3 wide receiver for a running back who hasn't had 1,000 yards rushing since 2016. Their wide receiver room is full of speedsters, but they lack a route runner and a possession receiver. The O-line isn't any better, while Deshaun Watson is still an elite QB. He'll be running for his life. They didn't fix their biggest weaknesses on defense. That honestly looks worse overall. The Texans will get lucky to get for the first couple games, but they'll ultimately take a step back this year. Eric, let's start with you.
Well, I wish we would have covered them before last week because I have David Johnson in fantasy, and I also have Brandon Cooks, and I have DeAndre Hopkins. But I have them at 9-7. I like Deshaun Watson and his efforts. I just don't know how far they're gonna improved this year, and let's hope David Johnson breaks out of that slump because I have him in fantasy. Brandon Cooks, he's kind of one of my backup guys. I got him just in case. And DeAndre Hopkins, let's hope he goes off because I have him too.
Okay. And Tyler.
7-9 for the Texans. That trade sending him away it was bad. And I don't really see this team recovering from that. I think it's going to be hangover effect from that. I just think this team has a lot of question marks going forward. Deshaun Watson is a beast. I think he will give them more wins than they probably would get otherwise. But yeah, 7-9.
Tradon.
8-8. I mean, how can you not have kind of a committee to make sure these stupid fucking trades don't go through? Like, are we kidding? Are we kidding ourselves right now? Just David Johnson. I mean, on my fantasy notes, I say no. That means just no.
I said yes.
Clearly. 345 yards last year versus I don't even know what Hopkins had, but fuck. I mean, I'd be scared if I was the owner. I'd be pissed. First of all, they were 25th against the run, 29th against the pass. Woof. And they lost an important nose tackle, DJ Reader, as you said. JJ Swat was hurt and only played 8 games. They need him to stay healthy if they even want a chance, in my opinion. I love JJ Swat though; he's awesome. Brandon Cooks and Randall Cobb and David Johnson. That is your answer. Good luck. 8-8 is probably generous. Bye.
And Alex.
Yeah, 6-10. Bill O'Brien needs to be fired. He is an absolute joke. I don't know who would fucking give him total reins of this team. It's not gone well. Obviously, that trade was ridiculous. Deshaun Watson, I agree with you, Tyler. He's a fucking man. He is a winner. But yeah, that O-line, he's going to be running for his life. I'm worried about that. Their defense is terrible. Their wide receiving core could be interesting with Will Fuller and Randall Cobb and Brandon Cooks. But if Deshaun Watson is running backwards and can't look forwards because 5 350-pound men are running down his fucking throat, that's going to be an issue. 6-10, I really feel bad because I love Deshaun Watson, but I have no faith in the Texans this year.
Deshaun Watson at 42.5, QB number 3. So he's the first QB off the board after Lamar Jackson and Pat Mahomes. He's projected for 317 points. Although he lost his best running back or wide receiver and his shitty O-line, he has great running ability, and I think that's going to help him a lot here. In our draft, Deshaun fell a decent amount to pick number 76 to Tyler. He went between Kyler Murray and Matt Ryan. So, Tyler, why did you draft Deshaun Watson when you did?
I was pretty happy he fell on me when he did. Really wasn't expecting to pick a quarterback in that slot, but he was on the board. And I figured he'd be a good pickup. Like you mentioned, I think that he does have the ability to outrun some pass rushes because of his offensive line isn't that great. So I still think he'll be a very good fantasy player for me this season. So yeah, I think he kind of just fell right in my lap in that draft. So I was pretty happy with that pick.
David Johnson's going at 46.1, running back 18. Eric, you drafted David Johnson at pick number 37, which is higher than his ADP. At that point in time, you could still choose between TG3 or Todd Gurley and James Conner. So why'd you pick David Johnson over Todd Gurley or James Conner?
I love Gurley. Had him last year. Didn't work out. James Conner, fuck the Steelers. I don't believe in them. My heart doesn't believe in them. My brain doesn't believe in them. So I saw David Johnson, and I hope he turns things around. It's been a while since he's done well, and this is the year he turns it around.
Okay. Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks, the two main wide receivers on this team now. They're pretty much the same kind of player. They're both speedsters. They stretch the field vertically, and they're also very injury-prone. Will Fuller is going at 89.2, while Brandon Cooks is going at 98.2. So between Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks, who finishes the best at their given value and their ADP? Tradon, Alex, and ask you guys.
Go ahead, Alex.
Will Fuller, if he can stay healthy, I think he's a more reliable guy. Brandon Cooks has had a very weird career. He's bounced around from some really good teams, But other than when he was with, I guess, Tom Brady and Drew Brees, like he really hasn't performed that well. Will Fuller was on track to be a really great receiver last year in fantasy. He just couldn't stay healthy. If he stays healthy, I'm going to trust him more.
Yeah, I just to be different, I'm going to go with Brandon Cooks. He's lower on the ADP, so I think that he has a little bit more room to, obviously have better value. I think that he's solid. I think that as long as if Deshaun Watson can sling the ball, I think that he'll at least compete and give. Eric, you have him right?
I have Cooks. I have him 2 years ago. And the year he actually did pretty well with the Rams. He did well for me. I was a better team than I was last year, so I know you had him last year and he didn't do dick for you, but this year he's going to turn around. He's going to do
turn around. I think we'll see a turnaround, and it'll be a good value.
And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. We finished all the divisions. Thank you for listening. I'm so happy we're done.
Yeah, we did it. We went through every single division NFL. James, great job on all those divisions.
Yes.
Lots of good info, both on teams and fantasy. So good luck to everyone with their fantasy season. And when we come back, Eric is going to tell us all about the world-famous beer mile. Stick around. All right, everybody, welcome back to our final segment of this episode. Eric is going to take us through the amazing event, the beer mile. Eric, what do you got on this?
All right, guys. The beer mile in a nutshell. Let me explain it first. Each competitor drinks 4 beers and runs 4 laps, ideally on a track. The beer is consumed before each lap within a 10-meter zone before the start and finish line. Rules of the beer: it must be 12 ounces, either canned or bottled. No shotgunning the beer. You just got to drink it straight up like a man or a woman. Beer must be a minimum of 5% alcohol. Must be fermented and brewed from malted cereal grains flavored with hops. In other words, Tradon, this is not a seltzer. This is a beer that fucking real people drink. The beer can only be opened by the competitor entering the transition zone on each lap. Strongly recommended to tip the beer over your head when each time you finish it to show that you've actually finished the beer. No Mike Brown style yakking mid sip when you're drinking the beer. And speaking of vomiting, it requires 1 extra penalty lap if you do that. So Tyler, you'd probably be running 5 laps. I could see that happening. So some interesting facts and records. The male record in the world is held by Corey Belmore at 4 minutes and 33 seconds. Holy fuck. He's Canadian, Tradon. The female record is held by Aunt O'Mara at 6 minutes and 8 seconds. Also, holy fuck, but she's American. Both records I could probably never do, even without a beer. That's just fucking – they must be runners. But searching through their website, they showed all their beers that are at 5% or under. The Sierra Nevada Pale Ale record is held by Swiss-born Daniel Vestergaard, 5 minutes and 41 seconds for Sierra Nevada Pale Ales. My choice would be a Kona Big Wave if I did it, but the American-born Lon Breitenbach has the record for that, 6 minutes and 16 seconds. Some other interesting beer records. The left-hand Nitro Milk Stout, held by American-born Jordan Bundy Librand, 6 minutes and 55 seconds, drinking 4 stouts. The Firestone Double Barrel Ale record, held by American-born Indy Juicy Coo H. I don't even know if that's a real person. But the record is 21 minutes and 30 seconds. Seems to be more of like a Tyler style time when it comes to running a mile. Alex, I'm going to go to you first. What beer would you choose and why? And then you also just mentioned some crazy info before that.
Yeah, so right before this, I was getting beers with a buddy of mine who is a brewer, and our other buddy who's been in a fantasy football league with his high school friends for like 10 years was actually competing in a beer mile and was like, hey, do you guys want to come watch me do it? And we're like, no. Why would we want to do that? We're eating tacos and drinking beer. Like, fuck you. But he was competing to do the beer mile for his fantasy football draft positioning. I believe he said he was doing Corona Light, so I'm not sure all of that whole 5% rule. For me, the DBA is a good choice, that double barrel ale from Firestone. Literally any hoppy Pilsner or a lager, if you are getting that 5%, is what I would go for. You got to go light as beer as possible. If you're going for some big double IPA or something, like you're trying to chug 4 torpedoes during a beer mile, you're going to yak. There's a 1,000,000% chance you're going to yak. So my advice from someone that drinks a lot of beer, go with if you have to do that 5% threshold, the lightest lager or Pilsner that you can find.
Yeah. They did have the Firestone Pivo Pills on there.
Yeah.
I was going to look that record up, but the double barrel ale just seemed a little bit more intense.
Yeah, I would do Pivo. Yeah,
you just sparked my interest. I wonder if we should place a wager. Whoever is dead last in fantasy has to do a torpedo beer mile.
Oh, shit.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
I love
I'm down.
It might be Tyler with all his
I'm down.
guys,
We can do that.
Leonard Fournette, Deshaun Watson, all these guys that are going down the drain this year. Anyways, James.
I will come down when Tyler does
that might be the reason. Yep. That'd be so great. James, if this were to become an actual pro sport, what things would you add in? Like, would you add in like a defense, or like, you get hip checked around like each corner, or what? What's in your mind?
I want to make each lap more competitive. So what I think I would add is that if you're not first, you take shots after each lap along with your beer. So if you're in if you come in second place per shot or per lap, then you have to take one more shot, right? If you're in fourth place, then you take 3 shots for that one lap. So if you're like the kind of runner that goes slow and steady, wins the race, you're fucked. Go faster.
Oh my god.
Oh fuck. That's a great point. That sounds like something you would say. I feel like you always try to tell me to take a shot.
That's like going with you though, so it's cool.
Yeah. Tradon, I know you only drink seltzer and you don't drink beer anymore, so I think you would yak. And if you do yak, which lap would it be and why?
Bitch, come on. I'm not yakking, dude. No, I could hold my own. I'd be running circles around you. You'd be the one taking the shots, let me tell you. I don't drink beer, but I just prefer seltzers right now. I'm in that little phase. But going back to Alex's point, the Corona Light is disqualified from regulation, so can't drink that.
I mean, what regulation is bullshit? This is literally just people going, fuck it, I'm just going to drink some beer and go run around.
On the website, dude. The website has like all these records and videos and all this shit. They're trying to treat it seriously, but
that said, I agree with you, Alex. It's got to do something light. I love Pilsners anyway, so that kind of goes right up my alley. I'm not puking, dude. I don't know what you're talking about.
You got to do a can though. I forgot to mention that. If you're trying to chug and get it done with, if you're doing a bottle, you're wrong.
Yeah,
like you're just wrong. You've got to do a can.
Straw.
You can't have a straw.
If you drink, if you're James, this is what's gonna happen when you get last place and you're drinking the beer out of a bottle, out of a straw. I'm also gonna slap your belly as hard as you can right as you start. Because if
you might break your hand, man.
If you're drinking beer out of a straw, that's ridiculous.
Have you seen
the thing where you flip it?
No, it's flip it and make it go.
I don't care.
It's the dude from the Nelk Boys that drinks like 17 Coronas in a minute. He's a monster. Anyways, Tyler, would you be more embarrassed if you yacked on the first lap or finished with a 20-minute mile, which are both possible for you?
Oh my god!
I think there is a 0% chance I finish a 20-minute mile. So for me, that would be way more embarrassing.
Right?
Way more embarrassing if it was 20 minutes. I mean, throughout my life, I've run a mile under 8 minutes, sometimes under 7 in my prime. So, I mean, I'm not the fastest chugger in the world, though, so that would be the one thing that would concern me. So that would be the hard part. But I would be pretty sure I could finish under 10. So
Yeah.
for me, that'd be way more embarrassing if it was 20 minutes, 100%.
Yeah.
But if
I
you
mean-
puke, you have to do another lap, so that adds to the time, right?
Yeah, but it still
Yeah.
won't be. I'll run a mile and a quarter, and it'll be under 20 minutes.
Yeah, no matter how many times you puke, it's only one extra lap. We can maybe change that with ours, when you got to drink 4 torpedoes out of a bottle.
Yeah. Hopefully,
Then get slapped
I
in the
think you have
stomach.
to. I think you're gonna have to wear like an outfit too. Like it's gonna have to be like a onesie. Or
Oilers,
I do-
like ski parka.
I do still have my penguin costume from all those years ago.
Yeah, you're doing it
somewhere in my.
If Tradon loses
garage.
fantasy, he'll have to wear a Kachuk jersey. He'll have to wear a full hockey uniform with like Van shoes.
You have to run with skates on.
Absolutely, I'll do that.
He's got to run with
Rollerblades.
ice skates on the Chapman track.
Absolutely, I'll do that.
Just carve up the track, the ice skates.
Yeah, well, that's all I got, guys. But I'm glad we came up with that. We'll have to let the fantasy group know whoever gets last. It could be Mike Brown for all we know. Number 1 fan of the podcast. But yeah, thanks guys for listening this week.
Thank you, Eric. I would love to do that beer mile one day. I'd love to see how we all compare. James, 100%, you're going to beat the shit out of the rest of us. But for the other 4 of us, I'd be interested in who comes second, because to me it's pretty close, I would think. I don't know. Tradon, I've never seen you run, so I don't know how good of a runner you are.
That's a good point, dude.
He just crawls.
I've seen you skate on ice, and you're a beautiful athlete on the ice. But in terms of actually running around on a track, I have no idea how you would fare. So
he's like a fish out of water.
I would be very curious to see that.
I think only James has seen me run.
Yeah. All right, boys, that's going to conclude our episode. Thanks for listening. For all of you guys listening, please rate, comment, subscribe to us on iTunes. Check us out on YouTube. We got our videos up there. Let us know if there's any topics you guys want us to discuss that we haven't so far. I know we kind of, stay with our own sports, but soon there's going to be a lack of sports soon. So we're going to need some topics and other things to talk about. So if you are interested in a certain topic and you want us to look into it and discuss it, let us know. Other than that, thanks for listening and have a fantastic week.